This video is just going to be a rant, and it's basically just going to be about our financial system as a whole, because there's a bunch of things I've realized recently, even with how many things I hear people complain about online with how screwed up our financial system is. I still haven't heard these things, and these are just things that I'm talking about from my personal experience. And the number one thing that makes me want to talk about this subject, which is the first thing that I learned about a year ago, is when I went to buy a used car and I realized, well, if I buy a used car that meets like a bunch of different criteria in my research to realize that this is going to be a great purchase, but it sadly is over 10 years old, that means that nobody's going to give me a car loan on it. And the best option I'm going to have is a personal loan on it. So if you have pretty good credit and you go get a car loan right now, pretty good credit, so like second tier from the top, you could get an interest rate at like 6.7%. And I'm just getting this information from like Google AI. But then if you need to get a personal loan because the car you're looking for is over 10 years old, well, the best personal loan interest rates I've been seeing recently are like 11%. Like that's a great interest rate for a personal loan. Now, the crazy thing to realize with how our financial system works is what may actually be more advantageous to that person. Don't do this. 100% do not do this. Just listen to what I'm saying is theoretically possible. And realistically, you could probably do. But everything I say in this video, don't do, because there's definitely things that could get screwed up. Just thinking about it, the thought exercise is what's miserable here. You could go and buy the new car you were planning to get at 6.7%, or that old used car, the used car loan at 11%, and do it like thoughtfully and like saying, oh yeah, this all makes sense. Or you could just buy the whole new car or the whole used car on a credit card. And it's like, why would you possibly do that? Because you know the interest rate's going to be higher on those. Well, you see, debt consolidation loans, I saw one recently, and there's one that's below 6%. A debt consolidation loan is below 6%. So theoretically, it makes more sense in our financial system to put a whole car purchase on a credit card so that you can debt consolidate it to get it to a lower interest rate. How does that make sense? Theoretically or realistically? It doesn't. It's insane. Then other things in our financial system that just make absolutely no sense. Let's say you have a business idea where you've got about $50,000 you need to start this business, okay? So you can save up $300 a month to be able to start that business. $300 a month in savings sounds tremendous to me. Like if you don't have a high-paying job, but you've got a business idea that you want and you need $50,000 of capital to start it, that sounds great. But that would still take almost approaching 14 years to save up that money for that $50,000, assuming you earn no interest. So even if you earn interest, it's like it couldn't knock that number down too much. Maybe 10 years. And that's the funny part of this, because how quickly could you actually figure out a way to get $50,000 of capital in a loan? And that's where this gets crazy, because here in the US, we don't seem to actually like give the advantage to the people that do it the right way, save up their money, and then they're able to, watch it and kind of watch over it in a good manner because they earned all that money, so they know how to respect it. We just throw it around because you can get access to $50,000 of capital, and if your company goes belly up in a year, well, actually, 11 years down the road, meaning the 1 year after, it took 1 year for your company to go belly up, and then 10 years later, well, you filed bankruptcy 10 years ago, and now it's off your record, and it's no big deal. And you actually realized that your mistake was forgiven from you before you even would have had the money had you done it the correct way. Now, if you didn't follow that, I'm sorry, but hopefully I explained that well. The next thing that I've just got to talk about too is just how bankruptcy actually works. Because theoretically, if you file chapter, sorry, I got to make sure I get this right so I don't tell you the wrong thing. if you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy instead of Chapter 13, there is absolutely no reason once you realize that you're going to file that you have to not like run up your debts anymore. Really. And that's also just insane to me. Like, well, I've got a $60,000 line of credit. I'm in the hole 50,000. Well, there's actually no reason for me to not run it up more and then file. So I can just enjoy this $10,000 however I want, assuming I'm not just going to buy things that actually hold value, because then they'll just sell them off in your regard most likely. But then you talk about other fun things in our financial system, like investment minimums. You know, we really like to talk about how we have a free market in the United States. But if you want to trade stocks a certain amount of times within a day, if you want to trade the same stock, buy and sell twice in a day, and then you do it with a certain number of stocks, well, you actually have to have a certain amount of capital to do that. Even if you can afford all the stocks, the buying and selling, we actually require a certain amount of capital, because you have to accumulate that capital for us to deem you that you have the knowledge required to be able to trade. Even though it's a free market and you theoretically should be able to basically burn your money if you want and like lose it in that manner. So how is that a free market? Then there's other fun things where I learned recently that I'm supposedly in an area right now in the Pittsburgh area that's supposed to be like one of the best places for young people to live. Now, I'm from the country, so just anything related to city stuff is really weird for me. And recently, I got a letter, and I kind of figured this would be the idea, right? That I was not cleaning my sidewalks off sufficiently from the snow that had fallen recently. I was like, okay, that's fair. I'll try to do a better job. But then I see what the penalty is. And we live in a country that's like, oh, no cruel and unusual punishment. Well, I mean, unless it's monetary. Then if it's monetary, it can be really cruel. So ideally in this state, you could make $7.25 an hour. And if you make $7.25 an hour and you work a 40-hour work week, that means you could make as little as almost $300 a week. Yet, I get this letter and they tell me to clean my sidewalk better. And I'm like, okay, that seems fair. But what's the penalty if I don't clean my sidewalk sufficiently? $1,000 fine a day. This isn't a city that has people. I don't live in an area with high rollers in terms of wealth. This isn't a city like New York where there are people making huge sums of money all over the place, especially not where I live here. You could theoretically be making less than $300 a week and have the potential to be fined over $1,000 a day for snow-related issues. How is that even possible? I mean, something as simple as missing that piece of mail for a week and then you leaving it and them actually levying those fines against you, it would take you months just to make that money, assuming you don't have any other things you have to pay for in that time. And that's just absolutely wild. Then we have other wonderful things, like I've heard plenty of people talk about this, but it's just another one that grinds my gears each year, which is that, you know, our tax system, your income tax that you make sure is all correct every year by April. And then, you know, other people who have to file it quarterly because they're in businesses or whatever. The only reason that's so complicated is literally just because of the fact that we need to keep companies like TurboTax and H&R Block in business because they make so much money off of all of us having to pay to do our taxes each year, which is just absolutely crazy. And the last thing that I want to talk about, and this just massive complaint about general financial stuff, is that I can build a brand new house out of gold and silver only. And I can have that house in, say, the area I live in, And the number one thing that a company that writes a mortgage is going to do to figure out the value of the home is not look at anything associated with the home. We're going to basically look at 4 metrics. Where is the home? How many beds? How many bathrooms? And what is the square footage? And your house can literally be made of gold, but they will not count all of that weight in gold. They will basically just look at those 4 metrics and be like, we can write a loan for this much based on those 4 criteria, and we can't really look at anything else. And that's really incredibly, with the huge amount of data we have nowadays, it's just impossible. I understand it, but it's still just insane to me that we can't possibly figure out a better way to quantify things like quality of home. And that's just because I've seen more recently where it's just like, wow, this home's so much better than all the other homes in the area. Why is it priced like so similarly? And it's literally just because, well, it's in the area and it's got the same number of beds and bathrooms. It's like everything's nicer. It's made out of solid gold. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. And that's just crazy. And those are my final financial complaints for this rant. So I don't know if this is stuff you've thought about. Once again, please don't take any of this as advice. It's just things that were on my mind and really bugging me. So wanted to get it off my chest. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe. Thank you.